you for watching the forum. I'm your host, Ashley Tate, here with my co-host, Christy Largent, and our guest today, Chuck Rowe. He is the founder and chair of Paradise Citizens Alliance. And I am so interested to find out what this is, because you just basically brought a group of people together so that you could help improve the quality of life for the community. So tell us how you even got that started.
Well, you know, I retired as city manager for Paradise in 2012, and I've always thought during the course of my career, 34 years in local government management, that what was missing from a lot of the communities that I served was a group of people that were nonpartisan, non-political, who really would step back and take a look at the entire quality of life of a community, identify the assets, and identify the liabilities, and focus on those liabilities to try to get other people to work together to sort of address problems and move the ball further down the field, so to speak, in terms of improving quality of life for all citizens in our community. And that's really what was behind it. And I was very fortunate to bring in about 26 other very, very highly committed, involved citizens in our community. They do a phenomenal job, and they were very excited about it. And so from day one, we've been very, very busy.
Oh, wow.
So what kind of stuff do you do? What does the Paradise Citizens Alliance, what do they do?
Well, the first project that we tackled was that we decided that in order to know how the quality of life in Paradise really is, let's find out from our citizens. So what we did is we conducted a community-wide survey over surveymonkey.com from October through, literally, we've learned since not to run surveys during the holidays, but it went beyond the holidays into January. And we had a tremendous response with about a 4% error rate. And we literally unveiled the results of that survey at an April 10th. We actually got the Paradise Performing Arts Center free of charge. And we unveiled the results over a PowerPoint, and then we had a big reception for the community. And it really, really showed some surprising results that were very encouraging. And now what we're doing is we're focusing on those areas that people identified as concerns to identify which ones we're going to start working on first.
What were some of those areas that you
Well, we were very pleasantly surprised to find out that an overwhelming majority of citizens identified the quality of life in Paradise, and I'm talking like 86%, from good to excellent.
Oh, that's
and then when they were asked when they were asked to evaluate or assess the quality of life of their fellow citizens, it went down some, but there was still a solid majority feeling it was good to excellent. That didn't mean that they didn't, in the course of the survey itself, identify that there were concerns or problems that they had. And so we asked them also to identify the top 3 priorities that they want us to focus on. And interestingly enough, the first and top concern they had was the lack of sidewalk and pedestrian pathways in our community. The second highest was the streets and roads, which I think every community in California can identify with. Because we're sort of fast becoming a third world nation in terms of our highways and streets and roads. And then the third was, and we are the largest...
I thought you weren't political.
No. Well, the third was that that basically we are the largest unsewered municipal city west of the Mississippi.
Really?
And we've had on-site systems, commercial and residential, all these years. And basically, they identified that as the 3rd highest infrastructure improvement that would vastly improve quality of life in terms of economy, jobs, that kind of thing.
So were you looking for input on things other than, like, those sound like city jobs almost, like a sidewalk, the streets,
They're
the
all
sewers.
but if you notice, there are things that people experience
Right.
on a daily basis. They experience whether the roads are in good condition or not, because a lot of them are motorists or they're pedestrians, and they experience it. So that came to the forefront. It didn't mean there were other areas that they did not mention. The biggest public safety concern, they actually identified public safety in Paradise that they felt extremely safe. However, the one glaring area was the threat of wildland fires, which is true of most of our areas.
But to your point, Christy, and also to yours, is when you don't have to worry about safety, and you don't have to worry about vagrants, and you don't have to worry about all these other things, then the roads do kind of take precedence.
This is true.
Like, actually, I do have some issues. Everyone everywhere has some issues, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, that is interesting that a lot of them are talking about the roads and things like that, because your background, you had 16 years as a city manager, is that correct?
For Paradise, 34 years total.
34 years total, wow.
Yeah.
But
Double
16
that.
in Paradise, so
Right.
you heard day in, day out.
Oh, yeah.
These were not surprising
No.
results for you, I imagine.
I thought that public safety would be higher up the list in terms of crime.
Really?
But it wasn't in our
Oh, that's
survey.
interesting.
But clearly, if an event occurred in our community, if there was a terrible homicide or something like that, it depends on when the survey is taken
absolutely,
and what
sure.
are the circumstances.
So
around it.
what did you guys do? I mean, these are pretty big tasks.
Well, we're tackling
So-
that now, but while we were doing the survey, to the point of trying to improve quality of life, in the midst of going around and getting the school district to help us with getting more of the kids to respond
Yeah.
to the survey, and we got a tremendous response by young people. The superintendent asked me, Chuck, would the Paradise Citizens Alliance and yourself like to help me start a student entrepreneurship class at the high school next year? And so we began a research of student entrepreneurship programs at the high school level around the country, found out there were certain elements that made for a successful program versus a weak program.
Right.
And also we found in our backyard at Chico State an international student entrepreneurship program called the Students for the Advancement of Global Entrepreneurship. So we merged the two
Right in Chico.
Perfect.
with our
So
new
close.
program that the school board just approved a month and a half ago.
Oh, that's
Wow.
fantastic.
And we have 14 students enrolled. We'll probably have a lot more once it gets
Right,
going.
when schools get started too.
And
Yeah.
they will be able to compete. They'll work in teams of two, developing a business idea. They will compete on a regional level, national level, and even an international level.
Oh,
With their entrepreneurial ideas.
And to me and to our group, the teaching of entrepreneurial values to young people, whether they start their own business or not,
Yeah.
is really critical, because most of our education is geared towards teaching our young people to be employees.
right, exactly.
And so we need to really change that if we're going to talk about changes in education.
And that's the way the world is going now.
Right,
I mean,
right.
entrepreneurship is
Right.
pervasive in just
Right.
about everything anyone
And it's
does
also
now.
kind of a core
So,
value of America.
It really is,
Very much so.
absolutely.
Where that's part of our DNA.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it makes sense that we
Which
would
is
tap
surprising
into
that with all the talk we hear about all these innovators in entrepreneurship, that entrepreneurship, the self-starting of new businesses, is really on a low trend in the
Right.
United States.
Right.
It's really sad compared to other countries.
Yeah, I was going
Right.
to say, comparatively
Right. Right.
speaking.
Right.
But I mean, we are definitely having a big boom in entrepreneurship. And so I
Right.
think what you're doing with these kids and starting early is amazing. And especially, I mean, Paradise is a much smaller town than,
Right.
say, a place like Reading or Chico, where they have
Right.
a lot more resources, or a college that's close. So I think what you're doing is really groundbreaking for your community.
Well, and the SAGE program actually assigns Chico State mentors to work with these students.
Oh, that's
I love
And then
fantastic.
we formed from our group a business advisory mentoring group.
Oh my gosh.
And our actual business owners, in about 7 or 8 of them in our town, will become real world mentors to these student teams.
Oh,
during
I
the
would
course
love
of
to
the year.
bring that here.
So it really is, we're excited about it.
Yeah.
So how would a kid get involved in that?
They would enroll, the school actually held a full day of talking about the program. The SAGE
good.
mentors came up and talked about it. So we think that just the 14 will blossom out and tell the rest. And the other thing about our high school, we have a real forward-thinking superintendent who really is bringing a lot of vocational career ed into the high school.
Yeah.
We have culinary arts, we have the engineering program they've just started that's tied to Chico State's engineering program, and those students will go into the engineering program
Wow.
at Chico State. It's really the kind of way and direction where the key is we have so many unengaged students.
Right.
And the key is to find that interest that's
Spark,
going to
yeah.
engage them, because every child is creative.
Absolutely.
Sure.
So
Now, how did the 26 other people feel about?
they were fully, we've worked hard on it.
Yeah.
It was an example of our group is looked upon by the school district as the community
partner,
group to
yeah.
go to for input on a lot of things.
That's
And we're
great.
involved now right in the local funding from the state, decisions on where that's, helping to input on
Now,
where that's going to go. So.
Did you have to look for people with specific skills in your community, or was it just anyone?
It was really by happenstance. I knew a lot of people
Yeah.
that I thought would be phenomenal and doers, not just joiners.
Right.
And they
Need
came
those.
together, and I just can't believe the dynamic of this group working together.
Yeah.
We have very, very good discussions and exchanges, and then we make a decision which way we're going to go on a particular issue. We
Yeah.
just supported a major project with the town that's going to address a stretch of the downtown where there were 90 injury collisions and 4 fatalities in the last 10 years.
Whoa.
So it sounds like
And
something needs to be done.
we stepped up
in
to the
that
plate
area.
and offered a letter of support for that, and the council approved it Tuesday night.
That's great.
Not because of just our input, but by a number of groups. But yeah.
Just goes to show what citizens can do if they all band together.
In a positive, constructive way.
Exactly.
Right. What are your goals? You've got big dreams. It sounds like.
Well,
what are some?
We
of your
know that we're not going to be
specific
able to tackle every problem in the world, but the idea is to try to find and leverage assets in a non-traditional way. Normally people say, well, I don't have enough money to address that problem. Okay, let's find a different way to tackle that problem by bringing other assets in that we may never have considered before for our community.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to do.
I love it. I mean, now what if someone wants to join?
Well, we
Paradise Citizens Alliance?
actually are just on, since we did our thing on April the 10th to the community, we've had people that want to join.
Yeah.
And what we're doing right now is we're bringing about 3 to 5 more new members on.
Okay.
And then we probably will start sort of a secondary group, sort of like that meets 4 or 5 times a year, but is not the central group, because we're thinking beyond that number it becomes a little unwieldy for the kind of work we're doing.
Yeah.
So but we clearly are we've got people on an email list. If they want to find out about us, they can go to paradiseca.org. And we will give them updates on what we're doing.
That's great.
Well, this is obviously a lot of work ahead of you. I thought you were retired.
I thought so too. I thought so too. But no, it's the kind of, I've learned more about the community, believe it or not. I thought I knew everything about my community, but I've learned more in the last year and a half working in this process.
Great.
Yeah,
so the learning process is something we should all be doing.
And what's the website again?
paradiseca.org.
Paradise, and that's not the city website. That's your
that's
Citizen
our own.
Alliance.
Yeah, we're an independent group.
paradiseca.org.
Right.
Yeah.
And if someone wants more information, they can go there.
And then there's our email address is listed there, and they can send an email in. We'll get a response.
You can call Chuck directly.
Absolutely.
He'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think they probably have your number there.
They probably do.
Or if you want to hear how he did it and you're interested in getting one in your own community, you'd be a great resource.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to go to a break, and then when we come back, we'll have another interesting interview for you. Thank you so much, Chuck,
Thank
for
you
coming
for
on.
inviting me.
And we'll be right back with the second half in just a minute.
Hi, we're back with Darrow Forestland, and he is the director of the Jake Jackson Museum in Trinity County, and he's got a lot of interesting stuff to talk to us about today, which will be, he's laughing, but he really does have a ton of interesting stuff. We've got 3 books up here, and there's a lot to learn about that museum. So let's start with your founder.
Our founder. Well, the museum really was, I think it gets credit to Jake Jackson, which is the name of the museum. Jake Jackson, at the time, going clear back to the 1920s, was collecting artifacts from the community and that sort of thing. So he goes way, way back. Well, in about 1952, he was able to get, he was the county treasurer at the time, and he was able to get the Board of Supervisors to put a museum in the basement of the courthouse. The courthouse is still there, but the museum has moved on. So in about 54, the Trinity County Historical Society was formed, which really became the driving force for the museum in the area, and still is, in fact, there's about 400 members of it, and they are the group that does run the Jake Jackson Museum today. So, but it went through a county process in the county, and then in about 1968 they were able to actually construct the current facility. So, which was a museum facility, basically has collections of a lot of the history of Trinity County, going back from the Indians to the miners to the Chinese, a big influence from the Chinese miners, and then ranching all the way through to what it is today. So
it's run by your historical society.
That's right.
The museum is. And where exactly are you located for our viewers?
Well, just as you're coming into town from this direction, from the Reading direction, we're on the left-hand side just as you enter the old historic district. So you really, if you're driving along just pretty slow, you won't miss it. I mean, it's a fairly big facility along the highway there.
So you're you're just east of the Joss House.
Just right. We're along the road. The Josh House is the next facility beyond us.
So where that parking lot is, then you must be on the other side of the parking lot.
That's correct.
And the Joss House is on one side, and you're on the other.
That's right.
Okay. Well, you have some exciting things that go on there, besides all the normal excitement of a historical museum.
Yeah. Well, we do. I mean, the museum has basically gone beyond just being a collection of things, and now we really have a historical park where we have facilities running. So we have a blacksmith shop, which is a replication of an existing blacksmith shop from Weaverville. So I mean, and it's when you look at the building, it's a replica of the buildings that were actually used at that time.
Amazing.
So, and we have blacksmiths. They come there, and we have blacksmiths training. On Saturdays, you can come in and actually learn to be a blacksmith if you want.
Wow.
On the major weekends, where there's 3-day weekends, we open a blacksmith shop on Saturdays, so you can come in and watch people make things.
On your 3-day holidays and all that,
right.
you can come in and actually watch them do their blacksmithing process,
That's
and
right.
the machine will work. And then you have a couple other machines that work as well.
We also have a stamp mill, which is the stamp mill is a device that was used to crush gold ore. In other words, so if you had a hard rock mine and you brought the ore out, you had to get the gold out of it. So they would crush it and then run it through the same sluicing material they would for plaster gold. So we have a stamp mill there that does run on those same times. So if you have a specialized tour, like right now, for instance, a lot of the schools are coming in for school tours for the kids, and we run the stamp mill for them as well, so they get a chance to see what that was like.
I get to see the whole mining process.
right.
That's pretty cool.
That's really neat.
And then we have an old 1906 portable sawmill that we run as well, which was basically brought out of the Trinity Alps. I mean, it was used in the Trinity Alps area, and we've got that running there too. So I mean, we've got a big sawmill obviously in town, but this is a sawmill that you might have out in a remote location like that,
Portable.
Well, it's more the portable. I mean, it's set up as a permanent installation, but it was portable from the standpoint of getting it in there. In other words, you could bring it in on the backs of mules and that sort of thing. So which is what it is. So,
wow. So how are you guys funded?
Well, we're funded from a couple of sources. We get some of the county TOT money, which is a trans-seat occupancy tax. So we do get some of that money for operations. Probably the other, I mean, we have 400 members, and we pay membership dues for the Historical Society. And another principal thing is we have a fairly significant gift shop there, and we sell lots of items and that sort of thing. Some of which are, for instance, these books I have in front of us are publications. These particular publications are actually publications that are published by the Historical Society for the museum, and they were originally done by some of our people. In other words, they're not something else coming in, but these are books that were actually edited.
That you guys have written. There you go, a picture of the Mountaineer, which is a collection of stories, it looks like.
By Jake Jackson, who was we talked about the founder. The interesting thing about that particular story, these are stories that he actually wrote for the local Rotary Club. He was a founding member of Rotary, and so the Mountaineer is the Mountaineer is the Rotary Club's newsletter, and so he wrote these stories.
For all the botanists, you have a book on the flowers and trees of the Trinity Alps, which is wonderful when you're hiking through the Alps. You want to know what is it?
This book is produced by Alice Jones, and one of the things we haven't talked about is that we have the Alice Jones History Center, which is where you can come in and do research. In other words, we have the opportunity for people, and they come in all the time and looking for research on maybe their family or some other interesting history thing. And so we have a large collection of documents and material from the various aspects of the county, lots and lots of photographs and whatnot. So it's the Alice Jones History Center. But Alice was really famous for a lot of things. She was I think she was the 9th person to be get a forestry degree in the United States.
Wow.
And she was one of the
in the United States.
Yeah, and she was one of the first to be hired by the U.S. Forest Service. So she was really involved in that sort of thing. But from the standpoint of the museum, she was really instrumental in getting our collections up to where we could research them. In other words, putting indexes together and whatnot, so you can find things without having to go through all of them.
When did all that happen?
Well, this has all happened in the last 15 or 20 years. I mean, it's ongoing right now. I mean, we still do publications on probably every 2 years we put out another publication. Alice was really interested in botany and whatnot, and so this particular book is a collection of the wildflowers and whatnot from the Trinity Alps, and she's got photos in them, and so it's
really beautiful.
But that's
really
all stuff
helpful.
she did all that work herself.
So that you can look at these and see what's out there. But I do have a question for you, and it's kind of going to back us up a little bit. How did you become the director? I mean, that's kind of a big job. And
basically, I worked for the county. I was a county CAO for a number of years. Before that, I was a county clerk recorder. So as the county clerk recorder, I had quite a bit of interest in the history. I mean, we were actually, we take care of all the land records and that sort of thing. So I've had some interest in history. My my parents and my grandparents all from Trinity County, so I had an interesting historical interest. So when I retired, I said, well, what would be a good place to work? The museum would be a good place to do some things, and so I stepped in there. And at that point in time, the existing director had decided that she wanted to step down, and so I got the job before I really even knew what it was.
And how long have you been the director?
I've been the director for about 2 years now.
Okay.
That's great.
Well, what do you have on the horizon? What are the plans you're looking forward to?
Well, a number of things personally that I'm looking forward to is that while they have a significant collection, most of it is still in what I would call hard copy format. And the indexes are still 3x5 and that sort of thing. So my goal is to digitize as much of that material as I can, and basically create databases that are searchable in the computer worlds that we have today. One of the big projects that we're working on right now, and I'm hoping to get it done in the next couple of years, is to actually digitize all of the Trinity journals from 1856 to current.
That would be amazing.
And so there's just a huge amount of data there that would help people to know what was happening. So.
Well, one of the interesting things, and I know you can't touch on all of it, is that you actually have a ton of history in Trinity County, and some of that, you touched a little bit on it, from the Chinese history, and then also the Native American history. Tell us a little bit about that actual history that happened there.
Well, I mean, of course, Trinity County goes back to the gold rush. I mean, that's really where they found gold there about the same time they did at Sutter's Fort in Sacramento. And so we go back to 1850. Trinity County was one of the original 27 counties in California. Interestingly enough, when it started, there was not even a formal government there. They had an organization of a county, but they did not have. Initially, they didn't have board of supervisors. Judicial things were done down here in Shasta County. But obviously, before that, I mean, there was a number of Indian tribes there that were active when miners came in the 1850s and brought really at the same time as a significant Chinese influence came in. I mean, basically, the Chinese came there really to mine gold. So just like, and so there was a significant Chinese influence, and of course that, results in what now is the Josh House that's there. But we have some interesting items there. In the early years, there was a Tong War between various Chinese sects, and we have material there that was made in Weaverville by the Weaverville blacksmiths that probably is the only Tong War stuff that was made outside of China in the world.
Wow.
And so
there was a sizable Chinese population.
Oh, there was a sizable, that's right. And of course, that all went away there was a smaller community. Moon Lee was essentially the last of the Chinamen, and he's the one that essentially put the Josh House as a state park. He was also very instrumental in helping this museum get started. So that Chinese influence is there. The mining obviously is a significant thing, and we have a lot of equipment. Like I say, the
blacksmith.
The stamp mill and whatnot. All of those kinds of things, the hydraulic mining and whatnot, which is a big part of what happened in Trinity County. A lot of the gold was done through these hydraulic mines where they actually blasted the water against the hill
So what do you have upcoming this summer that our viewers can?
Well, this summer, coming up this next weekend, the Memorial Day weekend, we'll be open on the Saturday for all these events. 4th of July is coming up. We'll be involved in that. One of the things that we have a restored, we call it a mud wagon. It's essentially a stagecoach that'll be in the museum, and it'll be in the 4th of July parade as well. So we try to combine all of those things, the 4th of July parade with the museum and the history, all that sort of thing at the same time. So.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and telling us about the Trinity County Museum in Weaverville. If you haven't been there yet, you need to make sure that you come and visit.
Probably one of the best small museums in the United States.
In the United States. I like that. And you heard about it here on the forum. Right here. What an interesting show we've had today. I know we've enjoyed it here in the studio, and we hope you have too. And we hope you'll come back next week and join us again for the forum where we watch interesting people doing interesting things. Thanks for joining us.